But you don't have a, they don't
Good
have
morning,
a-
board.
Good
morning. Glad to see everybody here and ready to weigh into another busy agenda. Meredith, please call the roll.
Joanne Adams.
Here.
Holly Bloodworth.
Here.
Jamie Bowling.
Here.
Patrice McCrary.
Here.
Julie Pyle. Randy Poe.
Here.
Sharon Robinson.
Here.
Lee Todd.
Here.
Steve
Lee's here
Trimble.
virtually. You got it?
Here.
Okay.
Diane Woods. Lou Young.
Here.
Alyssa Riley.
Here.
RJ Osborne. Secretary Link. President Thompson.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
Chair, you do have a quorum.
Great, great. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll begin with today's agenda is a dedicated public comment segment. This segment is limited to 10 speakers at a maximum of 3 minutes each. If there are multiple members of an organization, we encourage the membership of that group to select one person to comment. Do we have those signed up to speak? Thank you very much. Moving along to the next item, it's the good news time. And we will ask, Holly, are you ready for to talk about the Family Partnership Advisory Council?
Yes, so the Commissioners Parent Advisory Council was established in 1999 and transitioned to its new title as the Family Partnership Council, or FPC, in 2021. The vision of the council is outstanding family and community partnership practice that focuses on improving student achievement for all students in every Kentucky school. During the 2023 term, FPC members conducted an in-depth analysis of the latest research on family partnerships and recommended that the Kentucky Department of Education takes 4 actions in collaboration with the council to support every Kentucky school's efforts to form effective partnerships with families. Here are the 4 recommendations. Encourage districts and schools to develop local web pages that include more robust relationship building and communication metrics regarding meaningful family and community engagement. Number 2, hire a full-time, full-service community schools manager. The 3rd, partner with the FPC and other organizations to create an online, age-indexed, family-friendly guide that shares the most effective ways for schools to partner with families and to support many more schools' adoption of the Kentucky Family and School Partnership Guide.
Wow, thank you very much. I mean, this, partnering with families is easy to say, but it takes deliberate, thoughtful effort to get it done effectively, and we appreciate the support of the Family Partnership Council in supporting our efforts in that regard. Dr. Young, will you tell us about the good news from Jasmine?
From Jessamine County, sure. If I could do it without gushing this morning, I'm delighted to share that Jessamine County Counselor Leslie Gilpin, a school counselor at the Providence School in Jessamine County, the best alternative school in the state, just saying, recently attained her National Certified School Social Worker certification. Gilpin has been in education for the past 24 years and has been a counselor for 6 years at the Providence School, an alternative school, an A5 school that meets the needs of students that cannot be addressed in a traditional classroom setting. In all seriousness, it really is an amazing place, and I would encourage the board, if you have an interest in alternative education, Diane, I'd love to have you down there. It's a darling of the Center for School Safety as well, and it is an amazing school. Leslie Gilpin developed her interest in counseling while she was still in high school and worked as an aide for her school counselor. Later in college, she discovered an interest in social work and was pleased that she could combine those interests into a career in education. There she is being recognized at the association meeting this past fall, and Gilpin has a master's in social work and a clinical social work license through the Kentucky Board of Social Work. As a counselor, she said her role is to remove any barriers that may be keeping her students from being successful in and out of the classroom, using both her position as a counselor and her skill set and knowledge in social work. So join me in congratulating Leslie Gilpin, National Certified School Social Worker. much about that, but it must be, Patrice, reminiscent of National Board Certification for Teachers in this movement now moving forward around the work of school social work. So thank you.
Wow, and that attitude, move whatever barrier, whatever it takes. Brilliant. The next good news item is going to be presented by Joanne Adams.
The Kentucky Education Support Staff Professional Award was created in 2020 by Governor Andy Beshear and Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman to recognize more than 46,000 classified school employees in Kentucky. On February 9th, Lieutenant Governor Coleman and Interim Commissioner Robert Fields Kenny honored the 2 winners for this year during a surprise visit to their schools. And I'm sure that was exciting.
It was
great.
Best part.
The winners are Judy Edens, the lead custodian at Breckenridge Elementary School in Fayette County, and Brandon Burden, the custodian at Robertson County School. The names of Edens?
Edens.
The names of Edens and Burdens have been forwarded to the U.S. Department of Education for consideration for the National 2024 Recognizing Inspirational School Employees, or the RISE Award. The RISE Award, which recognizes classified school employees who have displayed excellence in serving students, was passed by Congress in 2019 and is overseen by the U.S. Department of Education. And a big congratulations to these support staff members. We know our schools can't run without them.
Right.
I'll just add, I loved following the social media accounts of your visit and that of the Lieutenant Governor. And I thought it was priceless that Judy at Breckenridge in Fayette County, they just told her she was setting up for an event that day.
They
So
did.
she and the custodial team came out to set up for an event. And then she was the honoree. And that's just what our custodians do.
She was very
Awesome.
surprised.
I love it.
Gotta set up for
You
your
know,
own bank.
Yeah.
just in that regard, Diana, yesterday when we were talking about the impact survey and those results, Diana asked about the extent to which we survey support staff to kind of get their perspective and insights on some of the school culture issues and that sort of thing, just to enrich our perspective on
Right,
that.
and I'm more familiar with the OTEL survey because that's what I did. And
Right.
it's the
Yeah.
Right.
And I've asked a couple of paraeducators in the schools when I've been out visiting, are you giving information? And they kind of look at me like they don't even know what the survey is. So I don't know if that was just the particular district or not. But I think we're missing a valuable set of information and resources if we do not survey them in somewhat, and including our bus drivers, our cafeteria staff, anyone that's involved with young people. Because, you know, that bus driver has the ability to set the tone of the day for that student to begin with. They're usually the first, voice, the first face they see. So I don't know if that's another set of surveys or what. And I didn't know if it was appropriate to ask it yesterday, so I didn't. But I know it was coming to you with it.
I mean, I do know that Jefferson does a large scale,
Yeah.
all
I think
employee
districts
survey,
do.
and so does Fayette. They're not this one. They're not run by Panorama.
It's like
Other districts I know do
Yeah.
too.
We do,
So,
like,
but
we
in
call
terms
it
of the
an
state
employee
level, that's
engagement
what.
survey.
Okay.
But
Um,
that
It
impacts
says staff
for certified.
in some places an impact, but I do believe those codes only go to teachers.
They're only for certified.
Certified staff.
But we have
Didn't know.
classified people that are teaching.
Yes, yeah.
Oh,
Let's
sure.
put that on our list to work on.
Yeah, exactly. So the good news generates more work, but more insight.
We're ready for
Yeah,
it.
we're ready. So Paintsville Special Ed, Steve.
Yes, this outstanding teacher is from my neck of the woods. Paintsville Independent's Stephanie Hammonds, named 2023 Kentucky Special Education Teacher of the Year. Stephanie Hammonds earned the 2023 Kentucky Special Education Teacher of the Year Award from the Council for Exceptional Children. Hammonds is an exceptional child instructor at Paintsville Independent. She also shares her time with the Carl D. Perkins Job Corps in Prestonsburg, which helps students find a pathway through career training and education in vocational alternative settings. She has been in education for over 30 years. The recognition is sponsored by the Kentucky Department of Education Office of Special Education and the Early Learning in Kentucky Council for Exceptional Children. During a ceremony in November, Hammonds received $500 award from the KYCEC, along with a scholarship to attend the Special Education Legislative Summit in Washington, D.C. A first-generation college student, Hammonds earned a bachelor's degree in learning behavior disorders from Pikeville College in 1994 and a master's degree from Morehead State University. In 2017, Hammonds earned the National Board Certification teacher status, specializing in exceptional needs. Congratulations, a big congratulations needs to go to Stephanie Hammonds for 2023 Kentucky Special Education Teacher of the Year.
Woohoo.
What a career and what more to come. How beautiful. Dr. Poe, talk about the national banner status with the Special Olympics.
Yes, I get the great honor of my neck of the woods over here too, Steve. I'll tell you, Meredith does a good job with it.
Yeah.
2 Kentucky schools earned national banner status with the Special Olympics United Champions. Larry Ryle High School in Boone County and Eastern High School in Jefferson County have earned the distinction of becoming a Special Olympics United Champion National Banner School. This distinction means schools have achieved 10 specific benchmarks in the Unified Champion Schools organization that they laid out to determine if a school has created a full inclusive sports or fitness program. The national banner signifies the school is among the best of the best in the Unified Champion Schools program, and each school typically has a banner raising ceremony to celebrate. Karen Parsley, director of the Unified Champion School, said she has only seen 5 schools in Kentucky earn the national banner in her 7 years with the program, and each banner raising ceremony is one of the most rewarding events that they have. A third Kentucky school, Bullitt East High School in Bullitt County, renewed its national banner Unified Champion School certification after initially earning the honor in 2019. Let's congratulate these different schools for their achievements. Let's go. I also have another award to announce. Our own Julie Powell, that sits on our board here, is an outstanding woman of Northern Kentucky. The Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Women's Initiative has announced the 2024 Outstanding Women of Northern Kentucky, who will be recognized on the 40th annual event on May 23rd. I get the privilege of being there with Julie. The award celebrates women who live, work, and volunteer in Northern Kentucky and represent the great diversity and extraordinary accomplishment of today's women. All the honorees represent the ideal role models for young women who follow in their footsteps. And I want to, before we congratulate Julie, I want to take part in a little thing, because when she watches this, the story, when I was superintendent at Boone County Schools, she was a parent, and she was always stalking me in Culver's, and we had a conversation. So I told her that she needs to get involved. So she's gotten involved, and this is 10, 15 years later, being recognized as one of the Outstanding Women in Northern Kentucky Awards. So it's a great honor. So let's congratulate her. This definitely is a huge event. There will be about 1,000 female workers or leaders in Northern Kentucky that will be at this event. So it's not a small thing. It's a huge, huge chamber initiative. So it is quite an honor.
Oh, how lovely and how well-deserved, and just in the brief time we have come to really appreciate and expect valuable contributions from Julie's participation on the board. So congratulations and thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
In addition to congratulations for Julie, I did want to just remind everybody that Unified Champion Schools is that affiliate of the Special Olympics Kentucky. You remember that group came to visit us at an earlier board meeting, and Unified Champion Schools, I get to serve on that national board, and what I appreciated about it so much is the rigor with which they make the determination about who these banner schools all are. So Eastern and Ryle, it's not a token recognition at all. They have to submit documentation that they are in fact building highly inclusive environments inside the classroom, across the school, and in athletics. It's not just an athletics kind of a focus, and leadership is one of their key areas. So having looked at the criteria that they use to make those decisions, big props to Ryle and to Eastern and Bullitt, and I think 2 other Kentucky schools for being national banner schools. So, and I just want to put in a plug for more and more Unified Champion schools across Kentucky. So a little bit of a soapbox perch, if I might, there for a second. Thank you.
Nice soapbox and really the right kind of challenge for our schools to aspire and work toward. Well, moving on, I suspect we may have some more good news and probably resulting in more work, but we come to the board sharing. For board policy, the agenda for each regular meeting shall include an item under which board members raise issues not included on the agenda for purposes of clarification, referral to a committee, or scheduling for future board review and or action. So if there's a consensus of the board to pursue that action. So we come to that moment, and I'll ask if there are issues or matters that board members care to share at this time. Yes.
Yes, just after reflecting on the impact survey yesterday and thinking about the 5 to 10 year,
Yes.
I'd really like to dig into that a little bit more. I don't know how much research has already been done on that, but I would really like to, I don't know, work with Byron or the impact, the Panorama company or something, and just kind of really dig into that and see what kind of supports or what kind of suggestions. I just feel like we give a lot of support to like early, recruitment, retention. We've had a lot of emphasis there, and maybe we've neglected the 5 to 10 year people. I don't know, but I just had so many questions that we kind of were discussing, and I'd like to dig into those questions and see what we can kind of figure out and what kind of supports we might put in place.
I appreciate you raising that.
Also, and as a former principal and superintendent, we give all, these new teachers coming in, give them all the support and things like that. And then after another group comes in, we kind of let this group go and start working with the other ones. So I think that's what happens sometimes with those 5 to 10s. We just kind of let them go to start working with the newer ones coming in. And there got to be some way that we can help these 5 to 10 people. I agree with you.
And I wonder, does KBE collect data on teachers who are leaving the profession within Kentucky and what year they are stepping away?
Bubble up from the districts.
What do you have any idea how that looks on the number of years?
I don't, but we do collect that data.
I bet it's within 5 to 10.
And we could share, we could share that at an upcoming board meeting or through materials out to the board members.
Yeah, we haven't seen a report on that yet, but I do think that the idea that retention, I think Holly said that, that retention is the area that if we're going to see any significant difference in the educator workforce, we're going to have to tackle it at every juncture, right? And retention is probably the hardest one. Several of my students have been doing some action research around teacher morale and this notion of burnout that typically manifests itself sometime around year 7. Although that number is getting smaller. And so really thinking about what that looks like. Alyssa mentioned it yesterday too, thinking about that is the cadre of teachers in our profession who have younger families and are feeling stretched in a lot of different directions. And there's nothing more confining than the classroom teacher role in terms of not being able to get away. Even a quick trip to Walmart is like unlikely on a given day on your lunch period, for example. So thinking about what it would take from those results, really drilling into that. And I'm not suggesting that districts aren't. I think they are, and they're trying to take control of the survey information in such a way that they can leverage it for good planning at the district level. But, if there were something that we could do at the state level to send that message, and I would also suggest partnering with KASA and KASS in that, because they've taken this deep dive into the educator workforce and teaching as a profession. The big headlines that came from that was around salary and compensation, but that's only one piece of a pretty comprehensive puzzle.
And has it changed over time, or has that always been typically?
Well, we know typically that's the
That's the
the
crux.
phase, the burnout phase, right? But it's, it's more dramatic than it's ever been before, certainly, so.
So Alyssa, I was watching you kind of while that presentation was going on, and I noted, certainly that nod of recognition around this tradition of teachers supporting financially the delivery of educational services, which is kind of I'd love to capture that number, that figure someday, and make it known how much teachers are contributing out of their own pockets to the support of their students. But also I was wondering, did you recognize everything that you heard, and what didn't you hear that you think?
No, I did. I've spent a lot of money. I mean, and I know everyone that's an educator here. I mean, it's just something that I've just come to accept, that I'm going to have to shell out my money to purchase things for my classroom. So that was something that, wasn't surprising. I'm like, yes. And Patrice yesterday mentioned COVID, really. Those teachers that are in that 5 to 10, 4 years ago, they were in that 0 to 4. So, how much support did they lose maybe between those early years when we took a pause for COVID, and now they're in that 5 to 10, and maybe they didn't get that support then. So backtracking to see what they need. I mean, honestly, I think also too, when I look at our district, we have so many 0 to 4. We have to put our resources into that, because that's a huge population of our teachers. And we never ask those 5 to 10, what do you still need? And I think they're kind of, it's tough, but I thought everything was very reflective of that. I think people are very honest on those surveys. I know we are. I mean, people need to be aware of what's going on in our school districts. And I just hope that school districts intentionally use that data, because it's important data to hear. Yeah. And I also too want to say something. I thought it was interesting, the perception of the administrators and the other personnel compared to teachers. That was very eye-opening to me in that data. There's a huge disconnect, and maybe we need to dig into why that disconnect exists.
I'll also say it's not just the administrators, it's the general public.
Yes.
Does not have a true understanding of how much a teacher pours in to his or her classroom. Quick anecdote. My final year of teaching, I was in a committee meeting here in Frankfort and headed back home, stopped in Bardstown at Walmart. And it was coming up on August, coming up on the beginning of school. And they had their school supplies on sale. And as a kindergarten teacher, I always had children who could not bring in their own supplies. So I loaded up my cart. I mean, literally loaded up my cart with school supplies while in there. And there was a reporter there in the aisles of the school supply interviewing parents about, are you frustrated over the school supply list? Is this a hardship on you for the school supply list? And I left the aisle and fumed and did the quickest U-turn you could ever see and went back to that reporter and said, let me talk to you. See my basket? I'm a teacher. And these teachers are giving out these lists because some of the parents can do this, but look at all of the parents who cannot do this, and guess who does it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I was quoted in the paper.
Dynamics here. Just to kind of summarize a bit, the education workforce dynamics are complex and essential to all the other goals and aspirations that we have as a board. But I have not seen that issue addressed in a way that is that represents a dedicated search for solutions or next steps, and real honest orientation to running schools as highly productive organizations of learning. I mean, I do believe that we stop short of that aspiration and satisfy ourselves with the custodial function of schools. I'm just going to put it in that term, because as long as everybody is there and safe, we are confident that some learning is happening, but we got to be dedicated that learning is happening for everybody. High quality learning, vibrant learning experiences, that takes staff who are skilled, who are definitely there, who are well supported and renewed in the way that we now know human resource support has to happen. So my hope is that we can bring a perspective to this that represents all the state-of-the-art dynamics in organizational development, human resource management and development, and modern productivity in every organization, no matter what the unit of measurement happens to be. Because I think that we get caught between the romance of what we remembered when we were
And the hard knocks.
and the hard knocks, and the current reality, which includes new knowledge that we might not have had when we were learning to be a principal or a teacher. And so that has to be addressed. And I think that we are at a moment where, we can take some leaps into the current knowledge base and current high quality practice, state of the art practice that, some of our administrators might be too busy to have learned, and some of our legislators never knew about. So, let's take responsibility for creating a perspective that allows us to make changes. That's my soapbox, but I have to tell you, salary alone is not going to do it.
No, it's
And
not.
also not knowing that this is a different generation of workers that expects every individual to be affirmed and respected, and they expect to do a job that is doable. And if it's not doable because we haven't made it, we haven't created an environment in which it can get done, they will walk out because they are not afraid to take the risk of looking for other things to do. I'm going to get
I
off
will
my
also
soapbox.
say-
Joanne, go ahead, please.
One thing I wanted to mention, another anecdotal kind of situation, but, I think we've realized that schools are just going to have to take on more responsibility than just teaching the children. And we have those systems in place to do that. And I think it's time that we started putting those systems in place for the teachers. I was talking to a nurse practitioner we just started that in Henry County, and she had just started her first year, and I was talking to her about it. I said, how's it going? She goes, well, Miss Adams, I was a little bit surprised. You know who I see the most? The teachers. And so the teachers were taking advantage of that because, you all know they're going to school sick, and they're not getting to go to the doctor because they can't get an appointment during school hours. So, and they're too sick to make the sub plans before they go in. So, I think it doesn't have to be something totally separate. We can look at those systems we have in place for kids, and we can expand that to take care of our staff and our teachers as well.
The other thing I was thinking about.
Go ahead, Diane. You go ahead.
Diane? Is we've got the data, we've got the what. So what are we doing? What are we going to do with it?
Yeah.
And there is so much experience and expertise in this building with staff. So are we looking at that information and saying, okay, this district over here is doing this really well, like you might want to consider partnering? Is that through the co-ops or someplace? Because the information is out there. We looked at that TEL survey, and I talked with one of the schools about, not the TEL, well, it was the impact this time, about their survey. And it's like, oh yeah, we did well in that area, and we didn't do so well in this area. So what are you going to do? And then, okay, next page. Right. So And where that leadership comes from to say, this is really important, that how do we galvanize around putting all our resources together to make sure that we support these people that are in the classrooms.
I appreciate you saying
It
that.
just really, it concerns me because I've seen too many things in education where we have the data and we don't like it, or we do like it and we go on to something else.
Yeah. Randy.
Yes. With all that, since we're going to have a breakdown, I'd like to also then, from what we're talking about, see a breakdown of those districts, the ones that have association contracts versus those that do not, to see if there is any relevant differences between, we keep talking about working conditions, and that's basically what a contract is, working conditions. So let's truly see if there's a difference between working conditions in a district that has an association versus those that do not.
Interesting.
We're gonna look at.
Lots of perspectives
I just
here.
briefly want to circle back to the salary issue. It is important. It is not the be all, but we are sliding as a state on what we are paying our teachers, and it's not encouraging them to go into the Ville. So as a board, I feel like we need to stand up and say, yes, our teachers should be paid more for their experience.
All right, we're going to have one more comment.
Oh, thank you, dear. This almost sounds silly, Alyssa, in my rose-colored administrator glasses, but I do want to kind of finish the conversation with something we didn't talk about the survey, and there's a lot of good news in it.
Yeah.
And what I saw as I pondered last night too, Patrice, was that it feels to me, and this is a little overblown in terms of the use of the data, but we really are emerging from the COVID era of that was just so incredibly hard. And now I think folks are starting to catch their breath again. And again, maybe overly optimistic from the data, but there were some points in there that were statistically very significant in terms of an upward bounce on that. So I hope districts are mining that as well and celebrating that as well and thanking folks for their participation and all the stuff that goes along with that too. So just a little rosy note in that too.
Well, let's not forget the Rosie. I mean, that's a source of courage and energy
Right,
to
and it
take
does
on.
speak to people paying attention to working conditions.
Exactly.
So, and that's what we need.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate that. That was a really good conversation. And
I have another question on a different topic.
please.
Okay. I've heard a lot of concerns, and I guess I'd like to get an update on our federal grants and our process of applying for those. Some of those are, I guess, in the MAP system, which is very easy. Then we still have some antiquated systems where they have to fill out manually. So if we could get a comparison of what they have to do versus what they don't, community 21st century grants, how those are done.
GMAP. Yeah.
GMAP.
Yeah.
GMAP. Some are done in GMAP, but others are done outside still. And I guess the question is why can't they all be part of GMAP all these years
I
later?
think we have added those federal grants along the way, so we continue to add ones that can go in GMAP. But we'll give you a report of the ones that are in GMAP already and the ones that still happen outside. And if there are reasons that they can't happen in GMAP, we'll be happy to provide that.
Perfect.
I have a couple
Great.
of NASB updates, Chair.
Oh,
NASB's
NASB.
NASB's coming to Kentucky in October for the national conference. So I can't remember which state we were vying for, but I just said horses and bourbon and it seemed to work. So on your calendars for an early note, that will be in October 22nd through the 25th of October here in Louisville. So we hope we have a great board turnout. They have also invited new members to the NASB New Board Institute, and we may have some of our own new members appointed at the time. I think Meredith's working on saving us some slots there. Diane and I have been able to serve on the principal preparation pipeline ad hoc committee that NASB has offered, and that's been a lot of great information. They did a webinar last month with Linda Darling Hammond and the woman from, she used to be at UK. Anyway, really good presentation on what's happening in terms of supporting principals in a pipeline there. And then I also wanted to mention that I'm going to be going to Meredith and I are going to go to Education Commission of the States event in July. I serve as a commissioner along with Dr. Thompson, Lieutenant Governor Coleman, and a teacher from Jefferson County. And so that event is in July. I'm not bringing it for board approval because they do cover the cost of our participation, but that's coming up in the summer as well.
and I will participate on that program.
Yeah, we're back to
with
back,
a-
aren't we? Yeah.
with a NASB-sponsored event talking about our work on Portrait of a Learner. So a lot of participation with NASB, but it's really a rich resource
All
for
eyes on
everybody.
Kentucky.
It's quite good. Dr. Thompson, we just called your name and you are up. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And we would love to hear from you about your work with the Council of Post-Secondary Education in the waning days of the General Assembly.
I like the way you phrased that, Madam Chair. I would love to give you an update on what is happening. First of all, I want to thank the governor and legislature for giving, if everything goes the way we hope, an excellent budget to higher education. So we're very proud that they recognize that we're doing some of the things that we need to be doing. So I want to give them a shout out for that. Some other shout outs, the Lumina Foundation selected CPE as one of the 7 winners of the Great Admissions Redesign. What we realize in today's time, we're going to have to redesign the way we look at college admissions. And we're going to have to think about it. And I'd love to talk with this board about even more directed admissions, ways that we can recognize many of our young people who are at least seniors in high school that would have the requirements to go into one of our post-secondary institutions. It'd be great if we could just say that they've been accepted. We had it on a way that they can understand that. So anyway, we were one of 7 selected groups in the country to look at this. We're talking about using AI, every which way we can think about to help students to know all their financial options and an easy way to get in post-secondary. You've probably seen the latest data for Kentucky. It's going to take 62% by 2030, 62% of all of our populations with a post-secondary credential to move into positions. It's going about 90% will have to have one to move up or to get a promotion or to get more knowledge. So thanks to Lumina for recognizing that we're doing good stuff here in Kentucky. I'll brag on myself a little bit if I can, which is my favorite thing to do, people say. I received the Legacy Award, the David and Betty Jones Senior Legacy Award for innovation in higher education from Simmons College. So that was quite a privilege to give that keynote speech that day and receive that award. I want to thank them for recognizing that. The mayor was there as well as Dr. Cosby, as well as David Jones Jr. to present that award. We had our Student Success Summit. It was packed again in Western Kentucky. We did a lot of good stuff there to focus purely on how we help all of our students succeed once they get into college. Our Student Success Collaborative, which is funded mainly by James Graham Brown. We're doing lots of great stuff in Kentucky. And as you are following, I'm sure you've heard me report last time, all of our institutions lead. We're up in enrollment. We're up in graduation rates. We're up in attainment significantly. As a matter of fact, our credentials are up and we're closing gaps. So proud that we're there. We're actually the first state, one of the first states. We were the first state, but I'll give other people some credit to really bounce back from COVID. So proud to report that from our new degrees and enrollment report. We also have the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative recognized in many other ways throughout the country. Just got through talking about one, but at our summit, we gave away some awards for people that's been great partners to us. James Graham Brown received the overall Student Success Award, but we also had, Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Eric Friedlander, who's been a great partner, who has actually put a connector on every one of our community college campuses, helping those students that may need that extra benefit to get through college. we're the first state to really do something that innovative. We're also, you probably read our basic needs report, where we really point out all the things that are going on in Kentucky with the students and parents, in many cases, that are trying to come back to school and can't, from issues of childcare or young people who are dealing with mental health issues and so on. We are also having a climb convening, and climb is really where we're helping people that have suffered from substance abuse in the past that now want to be counselors to those in the same situations. We're helping them to get a credential that they can go in to do that. And then places like Moorhead's adding a 2+2 where they can get even a social work degree afterwards. Once again, the Secretary for Cabinet and Health and Family Services has been our partner in doing these sorts of things. So we'll have a convening coming up fairly soon where we'll have a lot of conversation around this, and key people like Eric Friedlander will be speaking, as well as myself, Dr. Quarles, the Commissioner for Behavioral Health, Developmental, and Intellectual Disabilities will be there. So hopefully, if you all get a chance, you can come. Now, what I am going to invite you to, EKU is with CPE, we have what we call Pedagogicon, which is a faculty development conference every year. This year, we will have Stephen M.R. Covey as our keynote speaker. And the EKU Center for the Arts, we have 2,000 seats that we are going to be giving away for him to speak. Then we'll have an intimate dinner with him later on. This is a big event to get someone like him here. A lot of business and industry folks are really engaged with us that are excited about this. So hopefully we can get, Madam Chair, some of our board to be a part of that. So some of the KDE board. So look for an invitation to come on that. A couple other things, Amanda Ellis just sent to me now, and I'm gonna have to read it off my phone, but you know the relationship that we have with our P20 and Ed Continuum that we have with trying to make sure that all of our students get the skills they need while they're still in high school to move up. Our bridge programming has been so successful. We were able to get some ARPA funds from you guys to work on this with you. And it's really amazing. Over the past 3 years, we have over 2,500 students going through this. Key findings, we had an outside group do the evaluation of this. Key findings, more than half of the programs had college retention rates higher than the rest of the college programs. You have to remember, these are young people that we've heard in the past had learning loss. They needed that assistance in the beginning. So it's proven to be exceptional in so many ways. 12 of the 17 programs over the 2 years at KCTCS had higher fall to full persistence rates in addition. So, and I've got a whole list here and we'll forward to you, but bottom line, the more we can do before they even get on a college campus, I think the better we can produce the things that we need to. Our dual credits are once again booming. You know, with our new dual credit policy, we are looking at how we can streamline that movement between high school and college, how they can be on a directed program where they don't take the hours that they don't need to take, if you will, but ones that hopefully they can get as many as they can while they're there. The other item, I hope to be able to work with our universities and EPSB and you to talk about how we produce more master's degrees to help many of our high school teachers be skilled up. I just spoke at SACS yesterday. I was one of the keynote speakers at the small school conventions. We talked about how we need to make sure that many of these teachers will have what they need to be SACS affirmed so they can teach many more of these dual credit courses. There's really a lot going on, and we're proud that we are working so closely with our P12 counterparts. And I look forward with the new commissioner coming on, working with him. But once again, I always give her a compliment every chance I get. You know, it's been great working with Robin. And I'm happy. There's so much more I could tell you about, but I won't take up your time. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for that report. Your reports are always very high energy, and you get at the metrics that you know we care about. So we don't mind bragging about you at all.
Thank you.
Dr. Todd, did you want to make a comment or offer a question?
No, I have enjoyed watching the work that you've done, Aaron, with our commissioner, and I look forward to that going forward too, because that's one of the gaps we need to close, and I know it's in your sights, and appreciate the work that you're doing with Ryan Quarles too. I think that's a real boon for the state. I knew Brian when he got a Truman Award, went over to his classroom to give it to him, and he was late coming to class. He wasn't there. He came in late, and so he and I go way back. But I think the things that are going on now to concern ourselves with the workforce, concern ourselves with the cost of education, the things we can do to better prepare students while they're still in the pre-kindergarten to 12th grade areas will really help them when they come to campus. So I just applaud what you're doing. Congratulations on the award from the family down in Louisville too. Well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I did want to mention cost. You probably also saw that over the last several years, we've reduced student debt in Kentucky by $4,500. So we're going, when people are talking about student loans, Lee, we're going the other way. And we've kept tuition the lowest in history in the last 6 years, so we're proud of that too. So affordability is clearly still in our sights, and with the legislature providing us with a little more dollars this year, hopefully we can continue that.
Just one other comment. I used to tell parents the way to save money is get your child out of college within 4 years. That fifth year is an extra cost that you don't need. So you're doing great things. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now at a 4.1 year again. Can you believe that?
Kidding. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that report. I got a couple questions. Well, one statement and a question. One was I got to attend the event that Ryan Quarles had in Northern Kentucky with Gateway and the community college and system. And, just as you said, how that's reducing the overall cost and burden by doing the dual credit. So my question follows up with that. That was one of the things that we were discussing there is that, as you mentioned it, with post-secondary and EPSB and our colleges there of education and getting a master's degree it's no longer required, but since the master's degree is an option of revamping that master's degree. So in the future, I guess at one of your updates, if you could give us an indication how those universities are going to revamp their master's program to be more effective for teachers to be dual certified, because I know in Northern Kentucky, we still have to partner with, Thomas More, a private university, to get dual credit certified, because our public universities still haven't totally switched that way. So if you could help us, let us know what the Continuum's doing, working on that in the future.
Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely right. There's three things that I'd like to see happen. One may not be able to happen. One is that we need more master's degree. First of all, let me say we need more people, and Madam Chair knows this, we talk about it, to go through what I call a revamped new way of doing the traditional way of training our teachers. That has to become number one again. We got to get more people in the pipeline, no doubt. Number two, I would like to see us develop those master's degrees that matter to go to deep learning. In other words, I'd like to see more master's degrees being developed in our content areas, right? And that in itself, I think, will help us to move forward, whether it's in the sciences, whether it's in whatever the case may be. We have to develop more that targets that. And number three, Dr. Poe, you're absolutely right. We have to figure out whether we require this or not. This may not be the case. EPSB used to require that master's degree in leadership. Whether that was valuable or not, I'll leave it up to whomever. But, the idea, do we need to be thinking more along these lines, since we are trying to do those things around affordability, making sure our students are more prepared in college and succeed in college? Do we need to think somewhere along the way about how we develop master's degrees that really may matter more for the future of Kentucky? So I fully agree, and I will be happy to come back. And I hope we're able to work with all of our partners to make some of this come into play.
Yeah. Because, I'd like to see our numbers, since the state has not required the master's degree. My concern for the future is that there are less and less teachers that are going after that option of getting that master's degree, and we're not even going to have teachers that are capable of doing dual certified if we're not focused on this moving forward, and somehow incentivizing those teachers to get that dual credit certification, whether that's us going to General Assembly paying for that, or how can we get that? Because I see a dwindling enrollment in the master's programs, and we won't even have the option of getting them 15 additional hours because they won't even have their master's degrees. That's my future.
So I do believe that there is a quite urgent and substantive agenda before us that would involve CPE, KDE, and EPSB as really collaborators in addressing this issue of teacher credentialing, career development, and teacher professional development. As a workforce issue, what kind of knowledge and skill do we need to handle the emerging work of the United We Learn agenda, which is, this workforce dynamic is also a part of that. At not every point in everybody's career are they ready to take on a challenging assignment. Sometimes in your family life, you need an assignment that is a bit more routine. You can manage it. You turn in a good product. And then at another point in your family life, you're ready for another kind of professional challenge. I mean, we have to deal with the reality of our workers and leverage their passion for this work as an intellectual resource and as a resource of real value that we use well, and not try to treat every teacher like they are all fungible, or every job in the delivery of instruction as though it is doable by just anybody with a credential. Some of it does require special knowledge, and there's special knowledge to be had. Dr. Todd, I remember my master's degree in curriculum at UK, and it is what I learned then about instructional design and what is known now about curriculum design and instructional design is just, it's so rich and challenging and of interest to people, but not everybody needs to be expert in it. But we need every school to have somebody who is really, really good at it. So how do we help each school have everything that they need in terms of expertise to really do the job? Any of these topics would provoke a day-long or at least a week-long seminar, let's just say. Dr.
Madam Chair, may I offer two more things before I get, I want to say all of our 4-year institutions, all of our 8-year institutions are now deep in their second year of putting in our curriculum the graduate profile, those 10 employability skills that's going to be there. We're looking for hopefully dollars from other folks to help us to even go deeper. Everybody's engaged. We hope to have a general education program that's totally directed toward those, Lee, in just a couple of years, hopefully. But we are moving fast in that area. Once again, it's an area I know we're working with you all on the profile of a graduate, how we align that with the graduate profile. Just to let you know, we're moving fast. And I know Secretary Link is coming up here in a second. I did want to say another awardee that we gave as a crucial partner in our work with our Student Success Collaborative was basic adult education. So we're happy to be also connecting there. And we have now more employers that are wanting to work with us to do exactly what we're talking about that you mentioned, work with us on the front end. So hopefully we can continue this conversation, even if it is a day long. So thank you very much.
It would be well worth it. We're going to go next to Interim Commissioner Kenny, please, for your report.
Thank you so much, Chair Robinson. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. We are just days away from the conclusion of the 2024 General Assembly, which is always a big sigh of relief for everyone. I want to thank all the staff here at the Kentucky Department of Education, as well as members of the board who really helped us to make sure that we were engaged and active in the legislative process this time. We're also very grateful to the Kentucky General Assembly members for that increased collaboration with us. One of the messages that I tried to impress upon our General Assembly members as we had the opportunity to speak with them is we are a valuable resource to help you make informed decisions. So I'm really pleased that we've started to get more calls from different legislators asking, and then we've had help from key legislators over there encouraging their peers to come and talk to the Department of Education on any of the issues that they are working on. And we look forward to continuing that relationship, building that relationship once Dr. Fletcher joins us after his confirmation. Some of the things that I've been doing along with staff, if we can go to the first slide, is Dr. Kelly Foster and I visited Menifee County Schools, and a pleasure to visit Superintendent Tim Spencer and his staff. The mission of Menifee County Schools is empowering future generations to be productive and successful in a global economy through community collaboration, creative thinking, instructional rigor, and relevance in order to improve the quality of life for all. If you'll remember, Menifee County was one of our state managed districts not that long ago, and they were released from state assistance in June of 2022 by this board. And it was so encouraging and uplifting to be there and see the difference in Menifee County Schools. They took us through a stop at the newly constructed Menifee Central K-8 school. I still say their campaign on the nickel in that area is one that everyone should know about, because they work so hard and very strategically in order to get that nickel for that funding, really impressing upon their community the need that their students needed that building. And so really happy to be able to walk the halls with them. We did visit several classrooms. You'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, they're a really adorable emotional support dog, Ace. They actually have two, and Ace followed us wherever we went. He was a sweetheart. We also went and looked at the agriculture department, where we saw recent upgrades in their equipment and got to meet with a lot of the FFA students, which was fun. We also have had some time with STLP, always a great event in Lexington. The 30th STLB anniversary and the 17th state championship were celebrated this year. We had a record-breaking crowd of nearly 21,000 students there, educators and community members. And in addition to the great technology skills that are always displayed, what always impresses me is the leadership skills of these kids. They really know what they're doing, and they can tell you all about it. And so it's very encouraging and enlightening with the STLP kids. Of course, this is David Couch's last STLP conference, and so they have named sort of their series of awards the Couch Cup. Going forward. So I think that's a great honor to David, and it was a wonderful celebration of his leadership this time, as well as all the people that work, because it takes an army to put this on. And again, if you have not been, I really highly encourage you to go. It's a day filled of just amazement.
So does that mean the recipients are couch potatoes?
Couch potatoes, that's good. I also want to share with you a few things from our state schools. There is additional information in the full report, but really appreciate the principals, Dr. Petrie and Dr. Sinclair Morse, coming yesterday and talking to the state schools committee about all the things that are going on. But to highlight just a couple, at the Kentucky School for the Deaf, Elementary students completed a special art project with a focus on creating and expressing thoughts and feelings through art. KSD middle school students developed research projects based upon influential people of their choosing, and then they dressed like those individuals and practiced their written English skills as well as their ASL presentation formats. They have partnered with the Actors Theater of Louisville and Amy Chu, who is a deaf actor, arts administrator, and playwright. And a small group of KSD high school students are actively exploring theater through these activities. So we talked a lot about the extracurricular type of things that these schools try to make available to their students, and that's just one of it. Also at the Kentucky School for the Blind, and we heard some about this yesterday as well, we did have 6 students completing in the 2024 Braille Challenge that was held on the KSB campus. All 6 KSB students placed first or second in their respective competitions, and they now have a KSB bowling team that's kind of famous. They competed in the North Central Association for the Blind's bowling tournament, and they brought home a second place trophy. Lastly, a little bit about our 50 state area technology centers. Of course, they're continuing to provide really relevant and rigorous career and technical instruction. We are up to like 26,000 students that are enrolled in career and tech ed. So a wonderful opportunity for a lot of our students. And as we heard from Dr. Hargis and her staff, continuing to grow. It doesn't really show any slowing down. And we will certainly need the skills that are being developed in our career and technical education programs. In Garrett County, as one example, they are partnering with the UK Healthcare Jumpstart Program and BCTC to provide students an opportunity to explore those healthcare careers, which we see are in high demand. And Skills USA student members from Trailblazer Early College and Career Academy successfully showcased their skills in electrical construction, carpentry, and automotive technology, and placing in the top 3 places. And they will those students will advance to the upcoming Skills USA State Conference. This is just a little bit of what we've been doing here at the Kentucky Department of Education since last time we met, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about other things that are going on. I also want to express the appreciation on behalf of the department as a whole for the diligence that this board acted in the commissioner search. You all were really thoughtful and deliberate in the way you handled that process, and we are extremely grateful. It's really important that we have a great commissioner to lead both our school districts and the staff there, but also our agency as a whole. And we look forward to really working with Dr. Fletcher as he comes on board. So thank you.
Well, Commissioner Kinney, this has been another exciting report. I want to also acknowledge the extent to which you have embraced this role, not just here within the agency, but also out there among the districts and our schools. They know the face of KDE. They know KDE is really there to partner in helping them all be successful. And I appreciate so much that you have helped the staff here have the confidence required to come in here, even in this time of transition, and do the best work that they can. So we're very fortunate to have benefited from your leadership, your knowledge, and your dedication to this agency and to our learners. And we feel as though we had the support of a process that resulted in a very outstanding selection, and we are all looking forward to supporting the confirmation of our selected commissioner in any way that we can. So, I look upon this experience, I'm not going to say we were looking forward to it, but I will say that in the process, we got the benefit of so much good support from every member of this board, putting shoulder to the wheel in any way that they could. And I mean, they never said no. Thank you all so much. And we are trying to just stay alert to the emerging process for confirmation and support our selected commissioner as we all experience this part of the onboarding of the next Commissioner of Education. This is perhaps a good time to move into the legislative update. Brian, oh, okay, all right. You're not going to join us at the table, but we do have Matt Ross and Karen Worth. This is going to be an interesting report because it's not yet sine die, but we want an update anyway.
Can't come soon enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're close.
That's right. Spring has sprung. The tulips are blooming on Capitol Avenue, and Frankfurt's getting ready to let out a collective sigh of relief, I think.
Right.
So before we jump into the budget, I do want to thank Karen Worth and her team and Shay Ritter and his team. The budget, while we report on it, at every board meeting throughout the process, it's really a whole lot of work of collecting information from all the offices and submitting that and responding to LRC questions and inquiries and providing them with good data. And I mean, there's just a whole lot of work that goes into that. And I think Shay was even here last night till 8:30 trying to make sure that LRC had some information. So really appreciate all the work that their teams put into making this a final product. So you're right, we're not yet to sine die. We have 2 more days left. So we have, I think, a pretty good educational budget this time. Did we get everything we wanted? No. We got a lot. There was a lot of interest in sort of how SEEK was impacted by the increasing property assessments in some districts. So I've asked Shay to be up here in case you have any questions down in the weeds of property taxes or SEEK impacts. Yeah, so I think I'll turn it over to Karen and let her dive in for the overview.
Appreciate it. And I'll just echo Matt and Robin's comments. For the last 14 months, you all have been seeing me at this table talking about the budget, and I so appreciate the support and all the hard work and thought that went into our request. We're very, very proud of our request. We felt like it really did demonstrate the goals and the mission of this board. Nice. So thank you very much for all the support. I'm just going to step on Brian's toes a little bit and talk about legislative process on this slide. He'll dive into all the bills, but just to reiterate that, in January, the governor did introduce his budget bill. It actually went to the House and then to the Senate in February, so it moved really quick at the beginning of session. We had free conference committee where when the House and the Senate don't agree on everything, they put the whole bill out on the table, and everything is subject to conversation and possible change. That occurred and was delivered to the governor on March the 28th. And so now here we are 2 days away from sine die, and yay.
Well, and we know too that last night at 4:30 he delivered his veto message to the Secretary of State in regards to House Bill 6. So that budget bill, the main budget bill, and we had asked for a few vetoes that he did include those in his veto message. So they were mainly around some language regarding the Star Academy, and then some language around House Bill 678 provisions that were included in the budget. We asked for those to be vetoed because there's a separate bill that the governor has already signed that can't contain the same or but slightly conflicting. The House bill would enact the 678 provisions for 3 years. The budget would have only been for 2 years. So we said, we would rather have one or the other because it's just causing conflict. So he struck that language from the budget, but he has already signed the other bill, which will extend those provisions. So that is law, at this point. So whether or not the General Assembly agrees with those vetoes, we'll find out in the next 2 days, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you. So next slide, please. We'll start with our biggest appropriation we receive here at the department, and that is our SEEK appropriation. House Bill 6 did increase the per pupil amounts, 4326 in fiscal year 25 and 4586 in fiscal year 26. So we're always happy to see that number go up. There is language that says any excess SEEK that will lapse to the Budget Reserve Trust Fund in both fiscal years. There's also some language around Tier 1. It allows a district to levy an equivalent tax rate that will produce up to 17.5% of the revenues guaranteed by the SEEK program. So that language, if you have questions, we can get the expert to help us understand that. And also, as Matt mentioned, the property assessment growth relief language is new in the budget this time. And Shay has worked diligently with LRC and the Office of State Budget Director on trying to get that language the best we can get it.
So I do have questions on that. So you want them now or later?
Now's fine.
Okay. So Jay, help me out on that. So how does that affect the entire formula then? Because there's going to be this relief for some districts, but that's at the expense of other districts because of the local 30% match. So how's that going to play out?
So are we talking property assessment growth relief, or are you Tier 1?
Tier 1.
No,
Okay.
the growth relief,
Okay.
not Tier 1. I know how Tier 1's going to affect. It's
So
the
for growth relief, the language that's currently in there, the way it was written, my interpretation of that is on new property, which is a very specific, it's a defined thing in statute, which would be a farm that turns into a Dollar General. That's new property.
Yeah.
So they cap that growth at 10%. Now, for a lot of districts, especially the smaller independents, most of your assessment growth comes from what I call organically. Your house was 200,000,
right.
now it's
So it's
600,000.
not new.
So that language was so specific and so drilled down that when we ran a calculation, the impact was pretty minimal across the board. There are other ways to address it. Some of them get very expensive. The local effort, it's a large amount of money that's pulled out of SEEK funding.
Right.
So any tweak to that, if you reduced it by 2 cents per $100 of assessed value, that's going to be, say, I'm just going to throw a number out and say 50 million bucks.
Right.
So we sort of understood their intent, and there may be some further tweaks to this language in the near future, just because I don't think they were quite settled on what they were trying to do. They're trying to address essentially areas of the state that grow at a just insane rate as far as property assessments grow. Some of you will remember Superintendent Stacy from Beechwood was here 2 meetings ago, some time ago. And that was a concern. He had about a 30 or 31% growth in his real estate assessments in Beechwood. That causes almost a vacuum of local effort that comes out of the district back to the state. And, he's sort of left like, wow, he's capped at 4%. So he's always got this gap of sort of arguably a loss, and he can't do much about it, but sort of accept it and take it and deal with it with their budget.
So this is not addressing that particular request.
I didn't think it was.
Yeah, either do I.
I think
That's
it
why I
was
was
very
asking.
specific to new property.
Yeah. So then the other question, it kind of follows up with this, is it seems like across the state, because that's what you have. You got the ones sitting there saying, okay, my PVA is assessing my value. They're within that 90% range by the law. Others are not, but yet it's not being forced. So that's affecting that formula as you just expressed. So what are the steps for those counties that are, it was law that PVAs were to be removed if they weren't keeping up, but that hasn't been followed at least in the last several years. So what is occurring so there's a level playing field? Because that's part of the reason why SEEK is not working, because the PVA is not keeping up too.
Right. That's something that I think the Department of Revenue would actually have to answer. And I think many years ago, there was an article in the Herald Leader, I believe, that they had kind of dug into reassessments in counties. And they saw a pattern, of course, which was, I think reasonably well known, that some areas were not moving their assessments up at the same rate as other areas. Now, obviously, you know, your mileage may vary depending on if you go to Scott County, Graves County, Mayfield, wherever you go. But most of the time you can see it that like sells, if houses in your neighborhood sell, they will use that to, you know, tag a value to your house. And I think there's obviously reluctance. PVAs are humans, they're elected officials. If they raise assessments, that bill is going to get larger for the taxpayer. But that's something the Department of Revenue has to work through. KDE, you know, we have a great relationship with the Department of Revenue and always have, but it's just not something we really have a voice in that process.
Yeah, I guess that's my concern, is that because that really affects our districts. And one of the anomalies with the SEEK formula is just that we're dependent on somebody else, but we're not doing something. So I guess I would like our legal department at some point in time to tell us what effort did we do or what we should be sending to PVAs, because this is a concern that's being addressed by superintendents out there in relationship to the funding issues that we're doing. Because before it didn't matter quite as much, but now there are some districts with the merging of the counties that can be there. This can play a major effect one way or the other based on PVAs, which we have no control over per se. That's what we're hearing. But I'd like to know what our process would be to help those districts out, because they're not, you know, you can, I mean, the variance is great. It's huge now. It's worse than it was when we started this formula years ago. And this was one of the crux of the formulas, to make sure that the 4% increases were being kept up with, but they're not.
Yeah,
So,
right.
thanks for answering that.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Also, just to finish this slide, there was additional funding included for pupil transportation in the SEEK appropriation. Our full-day kindergarten language remained, which we were very, very thrilled to see that. There is new language in the SEEK appropriation for the STAR Academy. There's $5 million in the second year of the biennium to support a 3-year pilot program. This is an area that Matt mentioned earlier, that we did request some language be vetoed, and the governor did strike that. Now, whether or not it comes back in, we'll see that in a couple of days. It does specifically list charter schools, and it's not our understanding that that is what the STAR Academy is. So further looking into that one. So hopefully we'll have more information for you as we move forward. Legislative policy requirement language, I believe we touched on this in the last meeting. It is in the language, basically requiring districts to publish on their websites proficient and distinguished rank order. Also, language in SEEK that says that the General Assembly encourages local school districts to provide a certified and classified staff a salary or compensation increase. So there's no specific money, but the General Assembly has encouraged and included that language. Next chart you'll see, you're very familiar with. This is our ABR priorities that we worked on last year. Listed over in the 2 outer columns are the ABRs that were funded. Again, there's additional SEEK transportation. There's step and rank increases for our School for the Blind and School for the Deaf staff. Also, we did receive $1.2 million for content standards that falls under Mickey Ray's area. ROTC, we had asked for funding for 6 positions to be located in our Career and Technical Education office. That was funded. Additional assessment dollars to allow for any inflationary increase, since we are doing requests for proposals on most of our assessment vendors this year. Also, some operating support money for our SEEK, our education finance application. So Che and his team and my procurement team have been working closely to secure a vendor to help us build the next phase of SEEK. So that's been an exciting experience. And then lastly, the educator employment liability insurance. There's $5 million in each fiscal year to support that, and we currently do have a procurement open to try to secure insurance agency for that excess liability insurance for educators in school districts. Our next appropriation that we'll talk about is BOSS. That's the operations side of the house. K-Fix did receive $500,000. That's down $100,000. We typically have received $600,000. But our biggest concern there is keeping that carry forward language because of the timing of the way the process runs. It helps us to be able to carry forward any funds into the next fiscal year. So we did continue to, we do have that carry forward language. So we're very happy and appreciative of that. Advanced placement and baccalaureate exams, $1 million for free and reduced, and then $2.6 million for first come, first serve. Thrilled to see that. We are so supportive of the work and the fiscal support to school districts that we are able to provide with this money. So very happy to see that back in. Educators liability insurance, as I just mentioned, and then our SEEK appropriation or our SEEK application operating funds. Next slide is going to be what we call the LARS lines. These are the alphabet, or there's all kinds of different acronyms that we use for these, but these are all of our grant programs at the department. Most of these you all are familiar with. They've been in our budget biennium after biennium. There are a few new ones that I'll kind of touch on as we go through the next few slides. Junior ROTC, that's new for us. Also, Math Nation is a program. It's a virtual program offered to school districts to participate. We did receive funding in the last biennium for Math Nation. However, it was funded from the State Fiscal Recovery Fund, which was part of the Governor's Office COVID dollars. So this time it's $1 million in general fund for Math Nation. Also new is, let's see, the Statewide Reading Research Center. So that's $1.2 million. If you all remember CCLD money, that transition, we did an RFP to award a new contract for the Statewide Reading Research Center, and that is in its final stages. Also received new funds for what's called We Lead CS, and that is a computer science-based program. It is a virtual program. It, let's see, provides to high school students a virtual dual college credit career pathway for computer science. So something completely new for us here at the department. So we will be learning more about that as we move forward. Next slide, please. Let me see if there's anything I haven't mentioned. School resource officers. That language was in, then it was out, and now it's back in. So basically $16.5 million in the first year, $18 million in the second year. And that is to provide school districts with $20,000 per certified SRO per campus. So we are working now with Ben Wilcox, who is the state safety marshal, and John Akers at the Center for School Safety to, there's been a definition of what a campus is. So was able to receive that information yesterday, and now are going to be speaking with Christina Weeder, who is in Associate Commissioner Foster's office, to talk about our next steps and how we're going to make those determinations. Based on the number of campuses that we have, there's not enough funds for every campus to get $20,000. So we're going to have some conversation as to how we look at that and how that money is dispersed. Next slide. District salary compensation. Again, in the SEEK appropriation, it just basically says that we encourage you to give certified and classified staff an increase because additional funds have been made available to you through the SEEK appropriation. For state employees, there is a 3% increase in the first year and a 3% increase in the second year. Those increases occur on July 1 for everyone, so it's not based on your anniversary date. Other education funding within House Bill 6 is with the School Facilities Construction Commission, or SFCC. There are offers of assistance of $40 million. We did see a decrease in that. Last biennium, it was $85 million. So more than half of a decrease in those offers of assistance. And then there's new language around a school facility assistance fund. So those are awards to districts that are A1 and A2 schools and are ranked priority 1 and 2 on the district's facility plan. And that applies only to fiscal year 26, so only in the second year of the biennium. There's also language in SFCC's budget for special offers of assistance. There are 6 districts that are specifically listed for a total of $61.5 million. And language that says that no eligible school district that receives an offer of assistance may receive one in the next biennium. So that's pretty standard language that we see when we do have special offers. Health and Family Services Cabinet, that's where Friskies is located. We do receive almost $49 million for Frisky, but twice a year that money is, half of it is transferred over to Cabinet for Health and Family Services. So we do not take any administrative money or anything from that. We just simply transfer it. They did increase CHFS's budget in the Frisky area by almost $4 million, and that's for additional centers that serve more than one school. So always happy to see additional funds going to our Friskies. The Auditor of Public Accounts, their budget included $750,000 for an audit of Jefferson County Public Schools. And then there were there's a teacher scholarship program funded and a student teacher stipend program funded in the KIA appropriation of the budget bill. Also separate from House Bill 6, there's House Bill 1, and this language had a $2.5 million for the Department of Education to spend on purchasing AEDs for school districts. So the language was pretty much that. So we're going to have to dive in and find out what we need to do and how we need to appropriate that out to our schools. Lastly, we have our capital projects. Those have not changed. That's been the one constant from the beginning to the end. So very, very grateful for the capital projects that we requested and the funding that was provided in House Bill 6. So I'll stop now, take any questions, or turn it over to Brian for legislative update.
I got a question, or not a question, but just a clarification, just for the general public out there. When it comes to the special offers of assistance, those are done by the legislature and not our department, for people to know that it wasn't us selecting those priorities.
That's correct.
Yes.
It's in the School Facilities Construction Commission budget.
Correct.
Not ours, right?
Okay, thank you. I just wanted
It
clarification.
was
'cause
nothing
some
we
people think we
requested
select-
or,
Please.
it was nothing that we requested.
Correct.
We created or generated no list, and asked for
There's
that
there's
money.
just some people that think that we are prioritizing some districts over another, and it was not us. Just clarification.
Commissioner Kenny, did you want to comment on that?
No, I was just going to say the same. The General Assembly has, for the recent history, has a practice of making special offers of assistance. And while they may reach out to KDE to ask for numbers or data to support a request, we do not come up with the list or the districts that are eventually placed in the budget.
Yes, Holly.
Yes, the student teaching stipend program, will KBE administer that?
No, KIA.
Yeah, Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority, sort of the
Student loan people.
Keys
Yeah.
money
the student loan people.
But it's a stipend loan.
Yes,
Yes.
it's a stipend.
Lou?
You had mentioned that.
Funds will be available July 1st,
July.
when the budget takes effect. So.
And my question was, this may be a Mickey question, and if you can't tell me, it's fine, but do we know who the vendor is on Statewide Reading Research Center? It's only a curiosity on my part.
Honestly,
If it,
I'm not sure. So the
Okay.
contract is not yet in place.
okay,
But it is very close.
Okay.
I think certainly at the next meeting.
Yeah.
just curious. Thank you.
Why she's here, or somebody, can you explain the difference between, for me, lack of knowledge of read to achieve and read to succeed?
Sure.
That I can do.
Has to do that a lot.
The Read to Achieve is a grant program. So that is money that's given to the KDE that goes directly to districts who apply via the request for application process for that specific grant program. Read to Succeed is the funding that's associated specifically with Senate Bill 9 of 2022. And Dr. Poe, we are able to utilize that funding both for the Kentucky Reading Academy, so any of the professional learning that would fall under that larger umbrella, and the coaching model that the curriculum committee heard about yesterday. So that funding source is different from the specific grant program that's connected to Read to Achieve.
Okay, so, yeah, right, it's the older one, and but I guess under the process, that, or we heard from, or I remember getting lots and lots of emails from teachers that that program was eliminated through the other process, but that's not.
That
They
it would be
still
an
have it.
inaccuracy. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, it has been around. It will continue to be around as long as we continue to receive the funding, which we hope to, of course.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, we still have to kind of keep a careful watch. Brian, you want to add any comments on?
We do have some slides.
Okay.
I think.
Please.
There we go. Oh, there we go. All right. So with 2 days left, we just want to run through the bills that have already reached the governor and he has taken action on all the ones that have reached him that concern us, I believe. There's still a handful out there that could move in the final 2 days, just as a reminder. If they send legislation to the governor on those final 2 days, it is not veto proof. He will have time to consider action on those bills, and should he veto them, they will be out of time and unable to override those vetoes. Once they adjourn sine die on Monday, they will not be back in session until January, barring the governor calling a special election, which at this point does not seem likely. So that's kind of where we are with that. We'll go through the bills that are set to become law. House Bill 2, this is the big one. This will put a constitutional amendment on the ballot in November. And just to be very clear, there's the language that I believe will be on the ballot. It's very broadly worded. So I think you're going to see a lot of efforts by education stakeholders to educate voters ahead of the election on just what this could mean. There was hours of debate as this went through the process, and a lot of it centered around, what exactly will House Bill 2? Well, House Bill 2 really just puts this exact question on the ballot. That's all it does. And so should it be ratified, the General Assembly would have to come back next year and pass additional legislation to essentially say what that would mean, or how that could then be, those monies could be distributed. So lots of questions remaining, but just want to be very clear that House Bill 2 will put that question on the ballot, and then we will go from there once the voters weigh in November. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we had a last minute change this morning as the governor took action on a number of bills yesterday. So we no longer have any that are awaiting action. All of these bills are set to become law for the next 2 slides, and I will quickly run through them and answer some questions if you have any. Senate Bill 2 is one of the high priority bills in the Senate this year. It's a follow-up to the School Safety and Resiliency Act from a few years ago. 2 parts of this, one related to the guardians, sort of like an SRO, but not exactly. There was a lot of debate around the guardians, particularly around kind of chain of command issues from the law enforcement side. We did not weigh into that conversation. That's not our lane. The mental health aspect, Dr. Foster and her team were able to provide some feedback along the way, and we are very supportive of this and excited to see this get through. Senate Bill 265 relates to option 7. So there's been a lot of interest in all the different options and some tweaking the last few sections that continues this trend. The big thing here that I think you all will be interested in is that the House committee sub that was added along the way by Representative Timoney adds in essentially a new version of KTIP, or it requests that the EPSB begin setting guidelines for what that would look like. At this point, with 2 days left, there is no funding attached to this. It was our understanding that there would be at some point, so maybe in the final 2 days we see some funding get attached, but I think that's probably unlikely. I think it's more likely that we'll see EPSB work on setting up what this new mentorship would look like, or mentorship program would look like, and what type of funding might be needed for that, so that we can really start to advocate for that as we move forward. Senate Bill 11 was a juvenile justice related bill that was really trying to close the gap between a student being charged with a serious offense and the school district being notified. As I understand it right now, there could be a pretty significant lag. Obviously, that raises some concerns on the school district's end, not knowing what's happened. So that's what this was trying to do. Senate Bill 18 relates to school bus specifications. I think that At the end of the day, it will not allow us to be more stringent than the federal requirements. Is that more or less on point?
For certain things, yeah.
For certain things. House Bill 142 was an anti-vaping bill. A lot of conversation about this, a lot of school personnel weighing in about the challenges related to vaping. Yeah, just a lot happening there. We did see a House floor amendment added that addressed a lot of the concerns that Dr. Foster's team had. Saw another amendment in the Senate that again sort of addressed this mandatory suspension and made it permissive and not mandatory for the third offense and going forward. So giving schools some more flexibility to do interventions and keep students in school. So excited to see those things get added along the way. Senate Bill 164 is only up here because it caused a lot of confusion early on when it got filed. And I just wanted to let everyone know that from our standpoint, this doesn't really involve us at all. It doesn't involve OCTE or the department. But just I put it up there just so I could remember to say that. So if there are any questions. House Bill 22 just removes the medical oversight requirement for the AED programs. There's another AED related bill that we may see go through the last 2 days of the session. House Bill 377 relates to some of those items that will be administered by KIA. This was just a follow-up to the budget language. I do believe that there is a new pilot for a teacher student loan forgiveness program that made it through as well. So in addition to the doubling of the existing teacher scholarship from 1 to 2 million and the paid student teaching, there's going to be some sort of new student loan forgiveness program for teachers. House Bills 446 and 447 were filed by the same sponsor, related to the transportation issues that we have seen in some districts this year. The first one addresses conduct on school buses. The second one gives districts more flexibility to utilize passenger vehicles. We did obviously have some concerns with that second one, the passenger vehicles, obviously reminding people along the way that school buses are the safest way to transport students. They're big, they're heavy, they're visible. That said, we did see some amendments get added to this one that I believe addressed a lot of our concerns, but maybe not all. But we also recognize that this is a serious issue that the districts are facing. So are there any questions on, can you go back one slide? Sorry, Meredith. Are there any questions on this set before I move on to the next slide? I know I'm running through these fast, but there's a lot of them. All right, next slide.
Continue.
Okay, so House Bill 471 was asked for by General Bullard and his team because the Department of Defense required it to be in statute. My understanding is the department is already doing this. So we got some good kudos from the general as he testified on this one about what a good job we're doing in working with our military connected students and families. But that one's really just checking off a federal requirement for them. House Bill 535 is another one that saw a lot of debate and conversation as it moved through the process. So I guess going back about a year now, there's been a lot of talk about some sort of graduation requirement for civics education. So at the end of the day, districts are going to have two options. They can do a half credit civics literacy course, or they can offer the test and require a 70% pass rate on a 100 question exam. And that'll start in the next academic year. House Bill 695 is one that I think we're fairly excited about. So this is an online kindergarten readiness program pilot, and the department has offered to pay for the first year of this pilot with some existing ESSER dollars that we had available. It will be for up to 400 students over the course of the school year. Like I said, it's an online program that parents and caregivers work with the students on, trying to get them more prepared for kindergarten so that they come in on day one of kindergarten more on track. So it's an exciting pilot. Right now, there is not funding available provided for the second year in that. So we'll see again in the last 2 days if we see any additional funds added. House Bill 825, I'm sure you all are aware of. That's the audit of KDE. So I'm not sure when exactly that will begin, but we will obviously keep you all informed as that one moves through the process. House Bill 611 is another one that we saw a lot of conversation about. Obviously, chronic absenteeism and truancy have been big topics of conversation over the past year. This bill was addressing those issues. House Bill 727 started out as an obligation bond bill. It got amended a little bit along the way. The big part here that got added was the language that Associate Commissioner here addressed a little while ago, and that it added language that will extend the provisions of House Bill 678 through 2027. So that was really important for us to get this language done somewhere because those provisions of 678 sunset on June 30th of this year. So we really had to have some language in order for those to continue. So this will give us another 3 years to decide kind of, what tweaks might be needed and to work on a permanent codification. So, all right, so those are the bills that are set to become law. I apologize, I should have gone back and noted which ones have emergency clauses. Those with emergency clause will go into effect immediately. Those without will become law if they don't have another effective date in mid-July. The Attorney General will put out a ruling in a few weeks that will give us the exact date, and we'll share that once that comes out. Now, there are a couple of bills that are a little bit of an oddity because they passed both chambers, but they picked up an amendment late in the Senate, which required them to go back to the House for concurrence. So they didn't get sent to the governor for action yet, but I think that all of these are very likely to get done. So House Bill 162 is one that Mickey and her team have worked on a lot. This is Chair Tipton's numeracy bill, so it's a follow-up to the Read to Succeed legislation, essentially trying to do the same thing for math education that we did for reading. It got changed a lot along the way. They were very intentional in the early drafts to not conflict or overlap with those grades that are involved with Read to Succeed. Feedback from the field was, no, we want it to be K through 8. So there we are. We also did see a Senate floor amendment get added by Chair West to add some appropriation, $5 million in each fiscal year. So I believe if the House concurs with those changes, that we will see that appropriation go to the governor for action. Obviously, we're very excited to see this one move forward and hoping that it gets to the governor for action. House Bill 275 and 300s are kind of opposite ends of the coin. We'll start with 275. That's the teacher misconduct bill. This one this is Chair Tipton's repeat bill. So he had a similar bill last session that got to the Senate for action, ran out of time. This year, it's back to the House for concurrence. I fully expect this one to go to the governor for action when they return. House Bill 300 is a little more concerning. This one is trying to speed up the process by which the EPSB acts on once a complaint is made against a teacher or staff. So we had a lot of concerns about this bill. We were able to get some of those concerns addressed along the way. We still have some serious concerns about the timeline and that it will likely lead to some serious allegations being dismissed because we're unable to hit these timelines that involved a lot of other stakeholders, not just within the department. So still some concerns about this one, but we'll see what happens in the last 2 days. House Bill 387 is a substitute certification bill. This one is giving districts the ability to lower the threshold for subs and get rid of the 64 college credit requirement. Again, it's permissive, so districts that have a deep pool of substitutes that meet the current criteria and don't feel the need to lower that standard can keep that higher threshold. Districts that are having trouble finding substitutes will have a little more flexibility moving forward. And then House Bill 449, this was kind of an odd one. It started out as a bill that would change the requirement for providing a hard copy of your high school transcript when you file to run for a local board of education. Obviously, a lot of schools have closed over the years, so there were folks that are unable to produce a hard copy. This one did get amended and now includes some ethics requirements for local boards as well. So those, I think, are all going to get serious consideration as they're just in the House for concurrence or not non-concurrence. So Next slide, please. Before I do the resolutions, so there are a number of bills that have passed, specifically the ones that have already passed out of their initial chamber and are over in the opposite chamber. Some of those could still move. There's plenty of time left with 2 days left for a bill that's cleared its initial chamber to go ahead and get sent to the governor for action. So we may see some additional ones get sent, but those lists were pretty long, so I didn't include them. If you have any specific ones of interest, I'm happy to answer those questions. We do have a couple of resolutions of interest. Some of these are likely to get done, specifically HCR 81. That's the one that's going to look at Jefferson County. The governor did veto that, but I'm fairly certain that that will get overturned pretty quickly when they return on Friday. The others may or may not get done. I think the one of most interest to folks is the SEEK task force. Obviously, we had a SEEK task force just a few years ago that ended. So even if this one doesn't go through, it's probably something that we should be thinking about as we move into the interim. So also just wanted to mention that the resolution to confirm the nomination or the appointment of Dr. Fletcher has been filed by Senator Wheeler. So that is out there. I don't really have any other updates on that process at this time, but just wanted to let you all know that it has been filed. So we are well positioned heading into the final 2 days. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Brian. Any additional questions? Some good news and some not so good news here. But yes, Steve.
What about sick days? Did anything go through on sick days on teachers?
It has not. So
Good.
Yep. So that was one of the oddities of. It's been an interesting session in some ways. We saw a lot of committee subs. So almost every bill that moved got a committee sub right out of the gate, which really makes it hard on staff to do reviews and follow. We also saw a number of high priority bills, those low number bills in each chamber not move forward. And I think that's fairly unusual, at least in my relatively short time in Frankfort. Those top 10 bills usually get across the finish line. So a little unusual there. So.
Interesting. Thank you all. We still are watching closely, and we'll look forward to updates as we need them. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Secretary Link, so good to see you with us virtually. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. My sincerest apologies for being late. I think it's somewhat appropriate that Brian just finished the legislative update because that's why I was late. As you can imagine, the legislative issues are consuming a lot of time, as they are for the department as well. But we're about 4 days left until they adjourn sine die. But just a brief update. I know it's been a busy morning, but the budget was a bit disappointing for our cabinet. And one of the more disappointing things that did not get funded was our Everybody Counts initiative. That is now going on 2 years and really starting to show some true results, some true positive results. And unfortunately, the General Assembly did not see fit to fund that project for the next biennium. However, they did in House Bill 1 appropriate $10 million per year to the regional workforce development boards. So we have standing meetings with all the workforce boards to specifically discuss youth and young adult career services. So we will work with the local boards to see what we can do in lieu of the Everybody Counts funding to continue the program as best we can, primarily having coaches embedded in the schools that assist the students with helping them determine their career goals and their career paths. So we will continue to work on that. And also, as you might suspect, there are some bills that we are continuing to address, either pro or con, over the next few days that we'll be working on until what I suspect will be 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 15th. But also, we're seeing some very positive results from our increased efforts with reentry employment and veteran employment. We have dedicated more resources to that over the past several months, and it's really starting to show fruit. And we have success stories that are very encouraging of what can be possible when it comes to specific attention to those who may be leaving incarceration, and those veterans who may both coming out of service or those who have served and have specific challenges. We want to work with all those populations to help them achieve a new path and hopefully get them on a good path forward. I'm happy to report, it's been almost 2 years in coming, that the construction of the new training facility in Glendale, Kentucky for the Blue Oval EV battery production facility has been completed. So we are working with the Elizabethtown Community and Technical College, as well as KCTCS and other partners to stand up the training program at that new facility. As the first plant is close to completion, and we anticipate battery production to begin probably in the first quarter of 2025. That's still somewhat fluid, but our training programs will be ready to go here in the next 2 months so that they can start training what we hope will be approximately 2,000 new workers in that region, which is a great development for that. And then the last thing I'll mention is I mentioned it yesterday when Dr. Hargis was presenting, is the statewide workforce and talent team initiative. You've heard me mention this before, and perhaps Dr. Hargis as well, but this is a collaboration between our cabinet, the Cabinet for Economic Development, the Council on Post-Secondary Education, as well as KCTCS, the Department of Education, and the Kentucky Chamber, as well as other workforce partners. And in fact, we had kind of our first engagement, I'll say, with a major company who we are now working with directly to assist them with their specific workforce needs. And that's the goal of this initiative, is to bring all of the state agencies, all the public agencies that provide workforce services, as well as other workforce partners, to specifically assist employers with determining what their labor needs are, and then working with our training and education partners to develop the curriculum and develop the training that meets that employer's needs. So we're excited about this first dedicated effort to this. And the company, as a matter of fact, after our first meeting, they had, it's a large company, and they're looking at other states for future development. But they told us, and they had visited 3 other states before they came and met with us, and they told us that they had never seen this type of collaboration between workforce partners in a state, and that Kentucky was far ahead of what they had seen in the other states, which was really gratifying, as we've now been building this for over a year. So now we're going to start seeing what we can truly do with this effort. And we're very excited about what the possibilities might be. So with that, that is my brief update, and I would be happy to address any questions that the members might have.
Well, thank you for that. It's always exciting to hear your report, because having our students understand that they are being educated for citizenship and employment and further fulfillment as contributing adults is the name of the game, and we certainly appreciate the partnership. We're happy to see that, it's unfortunate not to get the absolute funding, but for the Everybody Counts initiative, but we're going to keep collaborating and finding links to these populations that allow us to support their further educational and career interest as well. Other comments or questions? Thank
Madam,
you.
Madam Chair, Madam
please.
Chair, if I might add on the Everybody Counts initiative, as I mentioned, we will do all we can to continue that program growing. But one thing we've done is from our experience over the past 2 years, is to develop a playbook of how we approach this, how we built it, and how local districts as well as the employer community surrounding those districts can take this playbook and build their own Everybody Counts initiative. With employer participation, obviously there's funding that is needed for perhaps personnel or materials or things of that nature, but the goal has always been with 120 counties. We're currently in 5, but the goal has been that all 120 counties have an opportunity to utilize this playbook to build a program in conjunction with KDE and the individual districts to start addressing career development. So that's one thing that we're putting the finishing touches on is the playbook, and then we will work with the department and with other partners to determine how we can best provide that information to the districts. And then obviously the cabinet will stand behind to support in any way we can to help develop this program all across the state. So I just wanted to make that mention as well.
Thank you for that, because it's really encouraging to be able to say, well, what endures? And what endures is new knowledge that we capture, and I'm sure the playbook that will be of great service. Not everybody needs to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. So, Dr. Todd, you had a question?
One comment. I really applaud the work that you're doing with Everybody Counts, because too many times that responsibility is given to a counselor or somebody who's got 20 other things going on. And
yes, sir.
It's such a serious thing now. We're putting such an emphasis on workplace employment and to make sure that they get enough attention that they can understand what their options are very early, because they got to make decisions probably in the 7th grade or so of what they're going to be end up doing. So my last question was, what do you call the last program you mentioned where you're cooperating across cabinets?
It is called this, and I did not come up with this name, and I don't have my law enforcement gear on, but the acronym is SWAT, and that is the Statewide Workforce and Talent Team Initiative. So SWATT. So perhaps we'll get badges or something to signify ourselves, but that was the term that, and it's trying to encompass what we're trying to do here. It's a statewide effort to develop workforce and talent. So that's how we came up with that name.
I think it's so important because in the past, you can give them graduation rates and you can give them certain kinds of pieces of information, but to collect all that together and put that together, I'm sure be a benefit to the recruitment of companies and their satisfaction, deployment, and employment of our students. So that's great.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
And one of the agencies I did not mention is the Kentucky Center for Statistics, which is within our cabinet. We call them KY Stats.
Yeah.
But they are the longitudinal data system that provides all the data that we can utilize to better equip us to make decisions, to target specific things. And I probably mentioned before, KY Stats is recognized certainly regionally, if not nationally, as one of the best longitudinal data systems in the country. So having that asset to help us develop the data and then implement plans based upon the data. We hear data driven all the time, and this is truly putting that into action.
Is that available online?
Yes, sir. KY Stats has a website. It's the Kentucky Center for Statistics. You can visit their website, and they publish regular reports constantly about various state statistical data. It may not even be necessarily workforce. It could be early childhood, or it could be adult education, or things of that nature.
Yeah.
But they all somehow relate to workforce.
Good. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Madam Chair and members, for allowing me this time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. We're now going to go to our action discussion agenda. And I'd ask Dr. Kelly Foster, Dr. Matthew Courtney to come and join us to talk about minimum requirements for paraprofessionals.
Good morning.
Please. Good morning.
We are bringing to you this morning a new reg that went to LSAC a couple weeks ago, and they didn't have any questions about this. And this is really pretty simple, and it is putting in regulations the qualifications for teachers' aides in common schools. And Matthew is going to actually walk you through the reg, and then we'll be glad to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Thank you and good morning. Before I get into the content of the reg, I do want to just provide a little background. This regulation is required of us by KRS 161044. So we are bringing this reg per the statute. And what I'm going to do today is walk you through a high-level overview of the regulation, tell you what each section does, and also where each piece of information and language in the regulation comes from, because nothing in here represents new or changing policy. We're just codifying that existing policy into regulation per the statute. So we'll start with section 1. This is our definition section. We have borrowed the definition of classified employee right out of the statute, and we've included a definition for paraprofessionals that comes from the Every Student Succeeds Act and from the Code of Federal Regulations. In section 2, we have identified minimum qualifications for paraprofessionals. These are also existing language that comes from KRS 161044 and the department's responsibility to establish job descriptions and minimum qualifications for all paraprofessional roles. So this is the minimum qualification, and then our other documents go beyond that. Section 3 codifies minimum qualifications for paraprofessionals in Title I schools, and this aligns exactly to the Code of Federal Regulations for our Title I programs. Section 4 enshrines some existing flexibilities for LEAs, particularly that they can add additional minimum qualifications for paraprofessionals in their district. So if they want to go above and beyond, they're able to do that. They're also able to create their own titles for these positions. So there might be paraprofessionals under the regulation, but they can call them other things as is necessary by the district and per board policy. And then section 5 creates the criteria for a statewide paraprofessional assessment. We're required by federal law to have that. And so we've just enshrined those criteria and expectations here in the regulation. And that's going to be really important as we look to enhance and improve that exam and bring new vendors on to support that in the future. So that's the reg. It's pretty straightforward. That's a high-level overview. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Then I would ask the board to entertain a motion to approve 407 KAR 3:550 minimum qualifications for paraprofessionals. Do we have such a motion?
I think it was 704.
Oh, pardon me. Yes, please. It's approved 704 KAR 3:550. Great. Is there such a motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I will ask if there are further questions. Then I will call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you so much. The
Thank
motion
you all so
carries.
much.
Appreciate it.
How did I?
Lots of numbers there. Our next item regards the amendments relative to World War II and Korean veteran diplomas. Chief Academic Officer Mickey Ray and Policy Advisor Sarah Peace will present the proposed amendments.
Good morning, Chair Robinson, Vice Chair Young, members of the board. As you noted, I am joined today by Sarah Peace, the Policy Advisor in the Office of Teaching and Learning, and we are bringing forward proposed amendments to 704 KAR 7140, which are required to conform to KRS 158.140 as it relates to veterans of the armed services. And the OTL would like to specifically thank the Kentucky Department of Veteran Affairs for their collaboration and the letter of support that they have given regarding the proposed amendments. On the next slide, you'll see the statutory basis. So KRS 158.140 is the associated statute which requires the KBE to promulgate an administrative regulation to establish guidelines for use by local boards of education when awarding an authentic high school diploma to an honorably discharged veteran. And technical changes are needed, and so Sarah is going to walk you through specifically what was changed within the regulation.
Hi, and good morning. It's a pleasure to see you again. This is really exciting to bring to you. We needed to make these changes because the regulation did not include honorably discharged veterans of the Vietnam War. And so that is really the substantive change that you'll see in the regulation. We also added a section for definitions that just align to other statutes by providing a definition for World War II, the Korean conflict, and the Vietnam War. Section 2 really just establishes the process for families who are seeking an authentic high school diploma for an honorably discharged veteran from one of these three conflicts, and none of those requirements have changed. We just made updates for readability and then to match drafting requirements for KRS Chapter 13A.
So at this time, we're happy to entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions?
In our prep meeting, somebody did ask about how often this happens, and my experience is not very often, but when it does, it's lovely and quite the honor. In Jessamine, I think we had 2 during my superintendency, and families nominated this person each time, and both were men, both were veterans who had kind of snuck around the requirement to have graduated high school or be 18 years old or any other thing at the time. Both of mine were Korean War vets, and so it really is quite a lovely honor.
I've been quite emotional, and to now recognize the Vietnam War as veterans as eligible is certainly something we embrace. So I will ask the board to entertain a motion to approve the proposed amendments to 704 KAR 7:140 World War II and Korean Veterans Diplomas. Is there a motion to that effect?
Chair, I'm honored to move that motion forward.
Oh, thank you. Patrice, is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second, so I will put the question. All in favor of adopting or approving the proposed amendments, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. We have approved these changes. Thank you so much for bringing this item to our attention. Next, we have one waiver request from Jessamine County, and we'll ask Associate Commissioner Matt Ross and Shay Ritter to return to the table to present this request.
So before I turn it over to Che to sort of walk us through these waiver requests, just a little bit of a reminder. You know, we talk a lot about House Bill 678 and the facilities. You know, it gave districts a lot more autonomy to sort of deal with some of this on their own. However, when it came to property acquisition, property disposal, the General Assembly did not grant them that same flexibility. I think the reasoning there is that, you know, sometimes state funds are involved, ensuring that the district got the appropriate fair market value for some of this, because, you know, it's still common school funds. And I think the General Assembly wanted to make sure that districts we're disposing of property appropriately for an appropriate price. So sort of with that said, I'll let Shay sort of walk you through what's going on. I think we have 2 waivers on the agenda here. We'll take them separately, I guess. Yep.
Sure. I'm sorry, what was the first one, Jessamine?
Jessamine,
Okay.
yes.
These are pretty straightforward. We had a couple of these, I think, last board meeting. For Jessamine County, there's a little bit different. They want to accept a Kentucky Transportation Cabinet appraisal in lieu of their own commissioned appraisal. This is not abnormal. Kentucky Transportation Cabinet does appraisals all over the state, and the department consistently has, felt comfortable with these appraisals if the local boards are. So that's what this waiver is about. And deeper into the staff note, this one's a little more complicated because there's some I have such trouble saying this, shared trails being used by the school district and the transportation cabinet. And if we have any questions about the trails, let's all stare at Lou Young and ask her about the trails. They explained this to me and I was like, wait, what trails, where are they? So basically, I now know more about these trails thanks to my staff. I'll be happy to answer any questions if I can.
So any questions? This is, I'm not going to say routine because each one of these is well considered.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit of staff information in our portal regarding this. So I'm going to see if we can call for a motion to approve the waiver request from Jessamine County Board of Education related to Section 1, parentheses 3, and Section 2, parentheses 1 of 702 KAR 4:090, property disposal. Is there such a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Diane. Now, I'll ask, are there further questions or comments regarding this motion? Then I'll put the motion to the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Thank you so much. Thank you for all this information that you provided as well regarding this. We'll go now to the waiver request from Henderson County.
Thank you, Chair. This is a lot of the same, a little different in that this is a small amount. So again, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet did an appraisal. I think this was less than $6,000. So the district, in lieu of doing their own, which would cost probably $6,000, said we're comfortable with the KYTC's appraisal. Staff was supportive of this. Again, pretty consistent that we brought these to you all for a waiver request.
Good. Then I will ask for a motion to approve the waiver request from Henderson County Board of Education related to 702 KAR 4:090. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Diane, is there a second? Yes. Thank you, Holly. Any further questions or comments? Then I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Say nay. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thanks to both of you. Then we've got the Kentucky minimum specification for school buses. Interesting topic this year. Everybody.
I'm gonna stay here because I apparently like to be on camera all day. So,
Okay.
but we have Elisa Hanley here, who is this is an annual item where she brings together school district personnel, but school transportation personnel from across the state. They lock themselves away in a room and line by line go through these bus specifications and take input from all these experts and experienced school district personnel to come up with the specifications for each year. And those specifications are used in the sort of in agreements with each of the bus manufacturers for the purchase of school buses for Kentucky.
Yeah, and if I could add, Matt, this is a great process, one that before I was director, I became aware of. And this is a room full of people who truly care about what they're doing. This entire manual, which I'm sure you all have memorized by now, is all about safety and getting kids to and from school. There are bus engineers in the room. There are a lot of district personnel, plus Alyssa and her staff. I wandered into this year's meeting. I was in other meetings and I still wanted to jump in. I think it was at the tail end of the meeting, a discussion about LED lights, how much further you can see them than the old halogens or whatever was on the old buses. And until you hear these people talk, you don't appreciate down into the nuts and bolts how important this topic is each and every year. And I appreciate Alyssa and her staff working extremely diligently on this. This is such a big part of her job that, over the years, she's obviously passionate about it. But we also went to LSAC. This is something we review with them each and every year as well. They were supportive of it. And to be clear, a lot of this will be for new buses. Districts are free to retroactively fit older buses and stuff like that. So with that, if you want, Chair, we'll be glad to go over sort of a top 7 or so changes in the bus spec manual, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So we have changed all lights, including the headlights, to be LED if they're available from the original equipment manufacturer. All new buses will have illuminated school bus signs and stop signs. So the stop signs that come out and the illuminated school bus at the top, they found that they can see the buses much further, especially in the dark. All buses will have heated cross view mirrors to melt the ice and snow in the winter. So that's the mirrors that are
Nice.
the bottom, where they can't get to while they're driving. Added the requirement to include a battery shutoff switch for bus batteries during the summer months or during long periods of non-usage to preserve their lifetime. We changed the requirements of the driver's seat to allow the districts to purchase more comfortable seating, more ergonomic seating. They know their drivers. That we know that there are quite a few workman comp, I can't even think of the word right now. Claims, thank you. So they're going to put in what they need for their drivers versus us dictating that. Change the air conditioner condenser requirements to allow the OEM to put in what's needed for the air conditioner. They can put in the proper size and not have to come back to us for any type of change or approval. Added cross-view mirror lighting as an option for the OEMs that provide it. Lights up the area in front of the school bus to allow drivers to see students and objects in low light or dark. Not all of them have it yet, so we couldn't make it a requirement on all of them. So that's pretty much our top 7.
Sounds really, really interesting, really smart, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. So these are minimum specs that will go into effect kind of prospectively and govern future purchases and acquisitions.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, further questions? Thank you. We do have the consultation with the LSAC and other interested parties, and as you say, it was a fascinating conversation, how blessed we are to have that kind of expertise focused on this issue. So I would ask the board to offer a motion and a second to approve the proposed Kentucky minimum specification for school buses. Do we have such a motion? Thank you, Jamie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joanne. Further comment and question? Then I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposition, say nay. The motion carries. Thank you so much. So,
We take a break until
yes,
11:30.
I am going
You're
to.
being so efficient. We're ahead of schedule.
Well, I'm going to offer the board just a quick 10-minute break.
I think so.
10-minute break. and we'll reconvene just shortly. I'd like to call the board to order, and so we can go on to the next item on our agenda, which is just the very wonderful opportunity to recognize the good work that's going on within our education community and the just another probably really challenging decision for our awards committee. Commissioner Kinney, would you please present the Sam Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education?
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. It would be my absolute pleasure. Dr. Samuel Robinson was a former member of the KBE from 1991 to 2004, who made diversity and equity in public education his life's work. A noted educator and civil rights leader, Robinson began his career in Kentucky in Louisville in 1960. His diverse background in public education included everything from principal at Shawnee High School to president of the Lincoln Foundation. Robinson was also a well-known community figure as Louisville navigated the civil rights era. Each year, the Kentucky Board of Education grants this award to a Kentuckian or a Kentucky organization demonstrating extraordinary efforts and contributions in the area of educational diversity and equity. The criteria for receiving this award includes, but is not limited to, successful efforts in closing socioeconomic and/or racial achievement gaps, and significantly improving student learning, student achievement, or other measured outcomes among students of color or economically disadvantaged students. At this time, it is my honor to announce the winner of the 2024 Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education, Emily Lehman, 5th grade teacher in Bowling Green Independent School District. I would like to take a few minutes to share what the nominator said about this very deserving recipient. Emily Lehman is an educator who embraces education as not only a profession, but a passion. Her diligent work to unveil and address inequity has led to reform and innovative new programs, inspiring African American families in new and engaging ways. In 2020, cutting-edge research appeared about inequality in mathematics instruction. That summer, Lehman led her mathematics team in academic conversations about teaching prejudice and the effect on the American education system. A year later, this global trend became personal as the population of Lehman's school became increasingly diverse and subgroup populations were large enough to identify trends as compared to the whole group. Both national data and local school data showed consistent discrepancy in math performance of African Americans compared to other subgroups or collective whole. Changes Lehman made in her teaching practice met such success and positive response, she created a brand new innovative program ushering in a paradigm shift in mathematical mindset in our school. Emily Lehman approaches education with reflection and creativity that creates greater student learning and positive change. This nominator says she is a worthy recipient of your award, and we agree. I'm happy to welcome Emily. Emily is here, and another individual from her school district has accompanied her, Sarah. And we'd like to recognize you, Emily, and allow you to come up and make us feel more.
Please come to the table.
I am Emily Lehman, and I am grateful and humble to receive the 2024 Robinson Award for Diversity and Equity in Public Education. I have found my passion innovating my Mathletes program for my home school, McNeil Elementary, in the Bowling Green Independent School District. This award has deep meaning because it recognizes the importance of identifying a national need and then creatively addressing modalities to support math proficiency and confidence in African American students right here in Kentucky. I accept it not only for myself, but for all who have worked together to engage in this important work.
working alongside dedicated parents to establish a stronger connection to math standards, and collaborating with dedicated community members to provide mentorship to my students has been an honor. Black individuals have made profound and indelible contributions to the field of mathematics, and my students celebrate being a part of that lasting legacy. It is a profound privilege to lead this important work at my school, and I am truly grateful for the positive impact that I see developing. Diversity is something to be celebrated, and it is a poignant reminder of the brilliance and resilience of our community. I am proud to be a teacher in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, where we prioritize equity in public education as a continuous mission.
Wow.
And Sarah Wilder is her nominator as well.
Oh, Sarah,
So
please.
I don't know if Sarah wants to make any comments as well. She is also her driver. She was getting her here today. They ran into an accident on the interstate, and so they had to take back roads all the way to get here. So we appreciate your diligence in getting here so that we can celebrate with you.
Well, and I just have to say, I won't take up too much time, but Emily came to me. We were talking about this on the drive, reminiscing about our history together, and she was actually a student teacher in my classroom about 12 years ago, and she was complimenting me on some of the things that she has been able to accomplish throughout her career and trying to give me credit. And I said, Emily, I wish I could take credit for even partial of your accomplishments, but I said, you came to me already such a natural, so polished, just so driven with such innovation and creativity that she has in mind every single day. She has such a love and passion for her students, and I wish you could see her interact with every single student every single day. She truly cares about each and every one of them and works to help each one of them grow and reach their fullest potential. And she truly is amazing and so deserving of this award and so much more.
Oh, my goodness.
That's great.
Wow.
Photo ops. Get in there, madam. Get out of here. Draw that to you, and you're welcome. So deserving.
Thank you very much.
Get some photos.
Yeah, we want to get
We want to get
Over
a
here?
really good one.
Get a really good one.
Hi, Sarah. Okay.
Thank
We get a chance. Thank you so much.
Yes, I did.
Perfect, thank you.
Because he was very cute, and we've got a bowling green.
Bowling green.
I know.
Bowling green.
I just sent her a friend request.
I'm sorry, I'll send that your way. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, as we congratulate Emily, I want to thank the board for a really, really productive meeting, and invite Emily and Sarah to join us for a quick lunch and get on the way today. I also want to ask that all of you travel safely and look forward to what's next, which is onboarding our next commissioner. So please keep in mind, stay in touch, and stay tuned. There'll be more news.
Stay tuned.
More news coming. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Steve, okay. Randy, you want a second?
Yep.
All right, I am not going to ask if there's any debate. I'll simply call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I think the motion carries. We stand adjourned.